All right. So thank you so much, Chip, for joining. We're really excited to have you here today.
It's an
So,
honor.
yes. So for some of the folks that are new to the Vine, I'll just give you a quick explanation on what that is. So, the Vine is the social impact network of family offices, governments, and non-for-profits. We have now grown to over 11,000 people from 71 countries and still growing. The purpose of the Vine is to build bridges for humanity and to focus on diplomacy and peacekeeping initiatives. We operate as a 501(c)(3) in Florida, but we're all around the world. So thank you so much, Chip. I've actually was introduced to Chip a few years back. This is the first time that he's speaking to the Vine community. So we're very grateful for him being here. And he actually came up in conversation randomly like three times in a week from three different people that were unrelated. So I felt like the universe was telling me, you need to reach out to Chip. So I sent him an email and he agreed to this call today, which I'm very excited about. So for those of you who do not know Chip, Chip is on a midlife mission. After disrupting the hospitality industry twice, first as the founder of Joy de
Joie de vivre. Joie de vivre.
Yes, my French is and I was married to a French guy, so I should probably know better French. Anyway, the second largest operator of boutique hotels in the US, and then as Airbnb's head of global hospitality and strategy, leading a worldwide revolution in travel. He co-founded MEA Modern Elder Academy in January 2018 in Baja California, Mexico, inspired by his experience of intergenerational mentoring as a modern elder at Airbnb, where his guidance was instrumental to the company's extraordinary transformation from a fast-growing startup to the world's most valuable hospitality brand. Modern Elder Academy is the world's first midlife wisdom school, and recently opened a campus on a 2,600-acre regenerative horse ranch in Santa Fe, New Mexico in May 2024. Dedicated to reframing the concept of aging, MEA supports students to navigate midlife with a renewed sense of purpose and possibility. He's a New York Times bestselling author. You've done 7 books. Learning to Love Midlife, 12 Reasons Why Life Gets Better with Age, is about rebranding midlife to help people understand the upside of this often misunderstood life stage. In the week of Chip's launch of Learning to Love Midlife in January 2024, he was featured as a guest on both Good Morning America and The Today Show, and the book rose to #1 in happiness and self-help book on Amazon. That's very exciting. So thank you so much for being here. And
It's great to be here. I appreciate being part of this community.
well, we're excited to have you. So do you mind sharing a little bit about like your journey and how it got started?
Yeah, when I went to grew up in Southern California and then went to college at Stanford and got my MBA there too. And a couple years after graduating from business school, I was bored. I was so bored with business. I wanted to do something creative. And I was in the commercial real estate business and decided to create a boutique hotel company because this was the mid 1980s and boutique hotels were just starting to become big time in the US. And I ran that company for 24 years. We created 52 boutique hotels around California, each with its own name. But you know what was interesting is by my late 40s, after I'd been running the company for more than 20 years and we had 3,500 employees, I didn't want to do it anymore, but I felt stuck. And the Great Recession was happening, and I had a long-term relationship ending, and I lost a few friends to midlife suicide, all men. And then I had an NDE. I had a near-death experience. I had an allergic reaction to an antibiotic, and I died. And fortunately, I died 9 times over 90 minutes. Fortunately, obviously, I came back to life. But at age 47, I had the opportunity to say, like, wow, how do I want to press the reset button on my life? And spent the next 2 years trying to figure that out and ultimately sold Joie de Vivre. It's a Hyatt brand now. And I had 2 years to just sort of figure out what was next. And it was during those 2 years, what I call the midlife atrium, where I had space and light and air to say, like, okay, how do I want to curate the second half of my life, second half of my adult life? Um, and that's around age 52 when I was asked by the founders of Airbnb 13 years ago to come in and be their modern elder. And I didn't love that term, but they said a modern elder is someone who's as curious as they are wise. And I joined that company when it was a tiny little tech startup and helped take the company to its IPO when it became the most valuable hospitality company in the world. And from that experience, I came to this weird conclusion of like, people don't really understand midlife very well. I hated my late 40s and then I loved my 50s. What's going on here? And how do you go through transitions in midlife and understand them better and repurpose yourself accordingly? And so that's how MEA came about. And so I've
Can
been,
I interrupt just a second?
yeah,
Because you just said a lot of really interesting things, and I'm sure the
go
audience
for it.
wants to understand. Like, I'm personally very interested in NDAs. I've watched hundreds of them on YouTube, and I'm curious, like, what about that experience was transformative for you? And did you see anything on the other side, or?
Yeah, no, so I had just given a speech in St. Louis and I was sitting down, fortunately, signing books when I went unconscious and they put me on the ground and within 5 minutes there was paramedics there. And that's when they put heart monitors on me. And that's when they knew I was having flatlines. And my experience was on the other side. Each time I would come back, I would I would talk to whoever was holding my hand and I'd say, here's what I just saw. And they'd say, oh, that's what you said 3 minutes ago. So it was the same recurring thing. The recurring thing I was seeing was being in a very light filled room, second floor living room, maybe 40-foot tall ceilings in maybe the Swiss Alps or some very forested place, and light was coming in, kaleidoscope of colors on the wall. There was harp music playing. There were about 40 birds surrounding me. I was flying, so I was able to fly in this room, and I was able to understand bird talk. The birds
Oh,
were talking to me, and I could talk back to them. And the birds were saying to me, slow down. You'll only see awe and beauty when you slow down. And I had these two slippers on. One said slow, the other one said down. I had a hotel in San Francisco called the Hotel Vitale that literally had slippers. One said slow, the other said down. So I was wearing slippers, no other clothes, and I was just flying around the room with the birds. And there was amazing, this oil going across the floor with a frangipani tropically scented thing. So it was all very beautiful and all very slow motion. There were no humans there. It was just me and the birds. And then at some point, the living room windows flew open, and the birds said, "It's time to go." And so the birds all flew out the window, and I started to try to fly out the window. And each time I would try to fly out the window, I would come back to life.
wow.
Um, that was my experience. So yeah.
So, like, my one of my very close friends had this experience. Hers was scary, but for yours, like, did it feel real, like how we are here today, where it's like a physical thing, or did it feel blurry, like a dream?
Um, it felt both. It felt real for sure. It did not feel like it was some figment of my imagination. It felt like I was really inhabiting this body that was flying around. But it also felt like not normal life. It was very slow motion. Everything was sensuously accentuated. So like the smells, the colors, the tastes, everything was very, very sensual. And it was very peaceful. I think that was the main thing I felt was just this overwhelming sense of almost being in my right brain. And in my right brain, I was in this place of creativity and softness and beauty. And I wanted to stay there. I mean, I didn't necessarily want to fly out the window, which I think might have meant I would have died if I flew out the window. But I did love just the state I was in. Um, so it was not scary at all. It was quite beautiful.
And just a lot of people that experience it when they come back, sometimes they go into like a lull where they're like, okay, now what? Right? Or the other way, they find like a newfound sense of purpose. So,
That was for me because I was struggling in my late 40s. I felt very identified with this business I'd started. I was like a little mini version of a Richard Branson for Virgin. So like the Chip Conley for Joie de Vivre was like, okay, how is this company ever going to survive without me? And so I had a lot of ego attached to it. I had a lot of identity attached to it. And so the idea that I could die and I don't have to actually live that identity anymore was quite liberating. And over the next 2 years, at the worst of times economically during the Great Recession, I created a plan to have me, let out of jail, so to speak, in terms of being the founder and CEO of that company without having to do bankruptcy or anything like that, which was, at that point, the economy was so bad that that was a possibility. So I think what it did is it really gave me options. And this is part of the reason why I created MEA, because I see so many people who are struggling with a transition that they are not able to step into, or they are having to deal with a transition like a divorce or a cancer diagnosis or losing a business or whatever it is, or empty nest and not happy about that. And so how do you help people in midlife make these transitions? Because when we're young, we're you're an adolescent, you know that you're going through transition. But for a lot of people in midlife, where there's a lot of transitions that are very natural, I mean, menopause being a good example of one, somehow people feel like if they're going through transitions in midlife, they're doing something wrong. And that's really why I wanted to create MEA. I mean, I lost 5 male friends to suicide, aged 42 to 52, during a 2.5 year period. So in many ways, starting MEA, albeit we're not a place for people who are meant to be who are suicidal. We're not that kind of health facility. We are a place where people come on retreat for workshops that are usually 5 days that are dedicated to helping you navigate transitions, cultivate purpose, learn how to own your wisdom, and reframe your relationship with aging. That last point is that Becca Levy from Yale, who's been a big fan of MEA, because we're like a living laboratory for her work. And we have about 7,500 alumni now from 60 countries. She's shown in her research that when you shift your mindset on aging from a negative to a positive, a consistent basis, you gain 7.5 years of additional longevity. So, in essence, while we're not a biohacking place, we are a place through the programs that we have and the practices and tools that we offer people. We give them the opportunity to look at life at the second half of their adult life as being maybe the best time of their life. And not because they're planning on going playing golf and having 2 martinis at lunch every day, but instead, like, what are the things that are going to make them feel really a deep sense of purpose? And how do we do this for families too? One of the things we've done a lot of is have intergenerational families, wealthy families come and go through our program in a private retreat format where it's just the family, to talk about intergenerational collaboration and wisdom sharing and legacy and purpose. Um, so it's been really encouraging to see how popular it's become.
that's so important. I mean, so the Vine, right? We cater to family offices and governments and NGOs. So we get people when they come to us, it's because they've made a lot of money, they've had success. They're typically very attached to that idea of
Yeah,
success and what that means. And
yeah,
so when Divine comes in, we bring them friendships and relationships that are outside of that paradigm where people want to authentically connect, not because of what you have, because who you are. And when you strip back the onion, who are you really? Right?
yeah,
Who are
yeah,
you without the title of the founder of this? Or who are you, if you're not a husband, or who are you if you're not the chairman of whatever. So I'm very interested in the journey that you went on with this, and how did you, obviously the near-death experience and the loss of your friends, but was there a moment where you realized that you're like, I'm none of these things, And I want to peel back the onion on who I am and who is Chip, really.
Yeah, between age 50 and 52, after I'd sold my company and I wasn't sure what was next, I knew I was going to write a book called Emotional Equations, which fortunately became a New York Times bestseller. And that really reaffirmed my belief that I wanted to do a lot more writing. Um, but I had time and space to just sort of ask myself, what's important in my life? One of my favorite MEA questions, which I was asking myself back then, before MEA existed, was 10 years from now, what will I regret if I don't learn it or do it now? Because anticipated regret is a form of wisdom. And I really wanted to get clear on like what are the things that are important to me? Learning guitar. I have two sons, but it's with a lesbian couple, and I wasn't really supposed to be involved. I was just the sperm donor for my friends, and then I wanted to really spend more time with them. I wanted to be an active part of their lives. That was when they were born around that time, both of them. I wanted to spend more time studying festivals. I was the first board member of Burning Man. Who knew Burning Man had a
That's
board?
amazing. I did not know that, Chip. That is quite
Yeah, no, I was the first board member of Burning Man, and I know the founders very, very, very well. I'm the mentor to the CEO of Burning Man, and so I wanted to go around the world to just study religious pilgrimages and festivals
Mhm.
of all kinds. I went to 36 festivals in 16 countries over the course of a year, and I created a website called Fest 300 that no longer exists, but it was a list of an annual list of the 300 best festivals in the world. So I just had time to be curious, and this is not a state of mind, being curious, that a lot of us have time for in
Mhm.
often in the mix of
Exactly.
when we're on the treadmill trying to
Yeah,
accomplish so much. So
exactly. That makes
so for me, I stripped away a lot of my historical identities, but I gave myself the space to be open to some new ones. And one of them was this modern elder, this idea of being twice the age of the average person at Airbnb. And but also I'd never worked in a tech company before. So here I am mentoring the three founders and helping to run the company, but it's a tech company. It's a tech company that wants to be a hospitality company. So my role was also to help the company become a hospitality company. But it was a fascinating journey, and I had to at times be the dumbest person in the room. And that was really helpful for me. I also had to get used to the idea that I was not the CEO. Yes, I was mentoring Brian, the CEO. But yes, I was also reporting to Brian, who was 21 years younger than me. So I had to right size my ego because for 24 years, I was the founder and CEO of my own company, and I made a lot of decisions, and I got my face in the paper on the front of magazines. So I really had to let go of some of the ego and the control.
Mhm.
It was a beautiful time because it forced me to do things that I think I would love to have done anyways, but I had to do it in the crucible of helping to run a really fast growing company. So yeah, I'm a deep believer that we are supposed to be editing our life
Mhm.
in the second half of our life rather ruthlessly.
Yeah.
Because if you don't actually let go of things, you don't create space for new things to come in.
Exactly, because for me, I've been on a journey of like, I used to always set goals, and I would say, if I don't accomplish this goal, then I'm not going to be happy. And every year I'd make a list of things, and then of course, every year I'd look back and never accomplish any of them.
Yeah.
But now I'm learning how to go and flow with things, and like I like this idea of editing, because if something is not for me, then the next best thing will come. But I'm constantly challenging myself. Like for example, I'm learning opera music right now, and I'm making a film, and
Wow.
I read poetry. And people think poetry, people are like, oh, how is poetry going to help me if I'm a dentist or an air traffic controller? Well, I will tell you, poetry will help everything that you do if you give it a chance.
I
And,
agree.
I've been reading a lot, and, I haven't read some of this stuff since I was in college. Like I read Balzac, I read Rimbaud, I read Blake. But I think if you push yourself, like you said, to kind of go out of your comfort zone and to say, oh, I'm too old for this, or you have to be a certain age to do a certain thing, then I think you were saying, and I'm curious about that woman that you are working with, because I think your body does react to it. Like if you
Mhm.
say I'm old, then you're going to be old, right? Kind of one of those things.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, Becca Levy at Yale, you're talking about, and
Yeah.
also Ellen Langer at Harvard, who's also been a fan of what we're doing because her research has shown she wrote a book called Counterclockwise, which was how do you help people to shift their mindset such that they think of themselves as younger than they are. And so we're living in an era in which we're living longer, and yet this idea of lifespan versus health span is really important. Health span being how much longer are you healthy? I mean, if you're living till 90, but for your last 25 years of your life from 65 on, you're unhealthy, that's not exactly a great life. But so we're very focused on helping people to understand not just the physical side of longevity, which the biohackers are all over. And there's, Brian Johnson in Venice Beach wanting to live forever, but it's more like the social science side, the art of living. You know, Dan Buettner and the Blue Zones folks are partners of ours at MEA, and we have done lots of work with them because, frankly, what his work has shown with Blue Zones is that it is not about, ice baths or going to the gym or supplements. I mean, the reason that people live to 100 in places like Sardinia and the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica is because of their natural lifestyle that they have incorporated, and there are nine particular variables that are most relevant, with the most important one being community. How do you have a sense of community? And that, I'm teaching this week here in Santa Fe with YPO, Young Presidents Organization. They come and do retreats with us all the time. And last week I was doing a public workshop here. But the idea of building community in a 5-day retreat, for 4 or 5 day retreat, is deeply woven into how we operate. Um, so yeah, I think it's exceptionally important, especially in a time where our lives feel pretty sped up and a little agitated based upon how the world is these days.
That's true. I mean, I'm a community builder like you, so I've in all my years of building bridges with people, I often find that people are generally pretty lonely, especially family offices, and I think a lot of the world lacks empathy for them because they think that oh, they have money and success, they must be happy, and that's the false illusion.
Yeah.
I often find that there's a strong parallel between the haves and the have-nots is that they can be used by people. If you don't have resources or accesses, which we support through the NGOs, you can be taken advantage of. And when you have a lot of resources, people, pass you the bill at the end of dinner, and
Yeah.
they don't know how that feels inside. So my focus has been because I personally grew up very poor, but I developed empathy for people who have a lot more than me, which is strange. But yeah, there's a loneliness going on around the world. Have you found that in your work as well as a community builder?
Yeah, it's interesting. If you go to the MEA website, which I just put the URL there, if we led with the idea that we are going to create friendship for you and community for you, I don't know that it would work as well as it does with the way we do it, because the friendship and social connection, what I call social wellness, is the collateral benefit of what a person gets from coming in and learning about navigating transitions. We talk about transitional intelligence, TQ, and cultivating purpose and owning wisdom. The collateral benefit people get is like, I have never felt as close to a group of people so quickly. And that's partly because of the experience design. But I think sometimes people undervalue the importance of friendship, and they don't even realize that the L word, loneliness, might apply to them. Because especially for a lot of people, what also another L word, loser, sometimes comes with the word loneliness. It's like, wow, I'm lonely, so I must be a loser. And so people sort of say, well, I'm not that lonely. I'm not that lonely. And they don't acknowledge that there's a yearning or a need they have. Um, but let's also recognize that we are all different, and some people are more extroverted and they really do need more social connection. And then there's introverted people who can be very comfortable with solitude and alone time. And so we have the full range of people. And I'm the full range. I can come across as very extroverted to people. And yet what I've learned as I've gotten older is that when I was a kid, I was very much of an introvert. And I'm sort of going back to that stage of my life a little
Mm.
bit, in terms of appreciating time and space to
Mm.
myself.
Absolutely. Because we have 45 minutes today, I wanted to actually jump in earlier to the audience to see if you guys would like to bring up any comments or questions or anything you wanted to share about your personal experience about some of the things we're talking about.
Yeah. Any questions for me about MEA, Airbnb, leadership? Um, how do you bring a family together to find a commonality and a unity around what the purpose of the family's goals are?
Hmm.
So I
Everyone's so shy. If you guys have any questions, don't be shy.
I actually had a question regarding the near-death experience, if it's okay
yeah,
to ask that.
Yes.
please.
So my background is neuroscience and clinical psychology, so I'm very interested in brain states when a near-death experience happens. Were you in any way being monitored while you went through the stages, or not? And
I
if
was not
so, yeah.
Yeah, my brain was not being monitored. My heart was obviously. And they had no idea what was going on. Initially they thought I was having a heart attack. Then they thought, I mean, they kept saying the word I kept hearing when I would come back to life was a word asystolic. Again, part of the reason all of this is so clear to me is I had never heard that word before, didn't know
Mm.
what it meant. And of course it means that there's no heartbeat, I guess. So it's not AFib. It was asystolic, which means, I guess, full flatline. And, so I don't know what was happening with my brain during that time. And we don't have any record of that. So, that's the best I can tell you.
Well, thank you. But I presume that was a life-changing experience and something deeply changed.
Yeah, I mean, I think more than anything, it taught me the fragility of life. The Stoics call it memento mori, memento mori, which is to be constantly reminded that, death is at your doorstep, even when you don't expect it. And so the idea of using death as as an organizing principle for life has been very important to me. And I have stage 3 cancer now, prostate cancer that spread to my lymphs. And so once again, for the second time in my life, but this time more chronic as opposed to sort of like okay, I just had a allergic reaction that killed me and I came back. Now I'm having to do that again. I'm having to just be very thoughtful about how do I want to live my life. There's a woman named Laura Carstensen from the Stanford Center on Longevity, and I'm on her advisory board. And she showed in her research that when people actually perceive that they have a short amount of time left in their life, for whatever reason, cancer, AIDS in the old days, being older, when you feel like you have a short amount of time left in your life, you focus less on the future, less on the past, and more on the present moment. And therefore, actually, when people are sort of later in their life, they have a tendency to be happier because when you are focused on the present moment,
Mm.
that's sort of a natural result of it. So yeah. So Dr. Cameron, are you from do you have Persian roots?
Yes,
I love the Persian people. I love Persian
thank you.
poetry. Uh, big fan. I went to the Rumi festival when I was doing my
Oh,
festival
wonderful.
thing. I went to the Rumi festival, the Whirling Dervish Festival which is not in Iran, but it's in Konya, Turkey. So yeah, big fan.
I
Very
always wanted to
cool.
go do that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Looks
So,
like Abby has a question,
oh
huh?
yeah, Abby, go ahead.
Abby, no, I'll ask it for her, which is can you share the dimensions or nuances of TQ? So we know IQ, we know EQ, EQ being emotional intelligence. And TQ is a term that we've trademarked it at MEA, transitional quotient, transitional intelligence, partly because we live in an era in which, my gosh, we are having to learn how to navigate transitions more than ever before. There are really three stages to any transition. If you look at Joseph Campbell's work, Margaret Mead's work, studying indigenous tribes, what you'll see is that there are these three stages. There's the ending of something, the messy middle, and the beginning of something. Caterpillar, chrysalis, butterfly. And once you actually understand that, you can understand that there are ways of coping through each of those three stages. And so TQ, transitional intelligence, is understanding those three stages. What are the coping mechanisms that can help you to accelerate your path through that transition? Because Bruce Feiler, who's on our faculty at MEA, wrote a book called Life is in the Transitions, came out, oh my gosh, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, it was a New York Times bestseller. And he basically says that the average transition for a person in their life takes 3 to 5 years. And that can be really, that can be a lot to deal with. So we help people to go through transitions a little bit more easily, and, in a way that feels better. And I was gonna say one other thing around that. Oh yeah, on the MEA website, and you've got the MEA the URL there. On the MEA website, if you go to the bottom footer of the website, you'll see a bunch of free reading material. There's something called the anatomy of a transition that actually goes into detail about TQ, and it's free. And all you have to do is just download it at the
Okay.
bottom.
Oh, great. I'll share that with the group as well. Does anybody else have any comments, questions, anything they want to jump in with? You guys are so shy today. Normally, you guys are a lot more chatty.
Uh, I do. It's Bobby. Sorry, I can't be on video. I'm in traveling in Montana. Hi, Chip. How are you, darling?
It's
Um,
good to hear you.
yeah, thank you for your wisdom as always. So I well, one thing, I just lost my mum,
Hmm.
and I nursed her through as her doula, and it was a really difficult experience. But also one of the most extraordinary. So I'm kind of in that mode and very close to the veil. And death has been something that's been very prevalent. And so, with what you're saying around, lifespan versus health span and the never die movement, the Brian Johnson thing, I've often thought about, society, we're really not well versed around death. We kind of
Yeah,
push that out, and the never die movement,
yeah,
that's even pushing it out further. And so I wonder what our relationship to death is now, when we're not taking that as, we keep pushing that out and pushing that out. So, in relationship to what you just said, and I'm sending you healing rays for what you just, told us
yeah,
in terms of phase 3. But with mum, it became very prevalent for her that she needed to tell every single person in her immediate sphere that she loved them.
yeah.
And so when you have that level of I've only got so long, you live in the present. I'm questioning what happens for those that are constantly pushing that out. So that comes up a lot for me.
Yeah, I mean, well, Bobby, it's great to reconnect with you and hear you. So what I would just say is when I say that death is an organizing principle for life, it creates a sense of urgency and a sense of what's important. I asked that question earlier, 10 years from now, what would you regret if you don't learn it or do it now? And the reality is if you're going to live forever, then it doesn't really matter. And so there's, how would life be different if you could live forever, or if most people lived till 120 years old or 150 years old? It would be quite different. And now I love the idea of longevity. And let's be clear that in the 20th century in the United States, we added 30 years of life. In the year 1900, it was 47 life expectancy, and by the year 2000, it was 77 years old. So we have been seeing a lot of progress. But the question I asked Brian Johnson is, it's not just about the length of life; it's about the depth
Mm.
and the connection. And when you hear Brian's how he curates his life and how regimented it is and how strict it is around like what he can and can't do, and even sometimes just his like his being that you can sort of feel when you watch him on a video. I don't know that I want to have that life. I want to have a different life than that. I want a life that does have a bookend of death someday. And imagine, yeah, if no one ever died and like, oh my God, our senators in Washington would be living, still be there at 110 years old. That, I mean, at some point you do need a process of passing on to the next generation both power and wisdom and the ability to have some autonomy and agency in creating the world. So yeah, I think the Never Die movement is an interesting thing. I think to Brian's credit, he's spending a lot of money that may help people understand how to extend their longevity. On the other hand, he's become sort of a supplement um, uh, hawker, and it's starting to feel more like it's a financial. He's doing it for financial reasons rather than for humanity.
Mm.
Yeah, I love that notion of death as an organizing principle for life, because when it comes to it, there are certain things that matter, and to remind ourselves of those things at that time, there's nothing more important, I don't think. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I also just want to comment that we have Craig Hamilton Parker on the call. Craig, do you want to say hi? He's actually a very famous medium, so if you guys ever want to talk to your loved ones, you can ask Craig.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi there. You pulled
Hi,
me in
Craig.
rather unexpectedly.
Called you
Your
out.
nose or
Well, we were
something.
talking about death, and we have a very famous medium on the call, so.
Yeah, it was quite a poignant, sort of interesting to see you talking about the near-death experiences. Does life continue? Unfortunately, sad losses, and as well described there. But yeah, my work's been as a medium through my life, and I, I I think when you work with it for so long, so many years of doing it, you realize that there is no such thing as death. And you say about life has a bookend. I think we do need an ending of the nature of time, but what happens after death is probably something in a different sort of timeline, as it were. And we're always counting our life in terms of how many more years, how many more years, many more good years can we have? And yet, in many respects, when we see it as a bigger picture and see our existence as being something that's eternal, then why worry?
Yeah.
Because why worry? Why not just be happy and exist within this moment? And if it all ends and it all finishes, if we know in our hearts, and we know not through belief but through proof, which I'm sure you would have had much of that from a near-death experience. I mean, once you know it's for certain, then there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to crave for. All the things we have in this world are just cast away. And when we do that sort of thing, I think we become much, much happier people. It's the essence,
Yeah.
perhaps, of happiness, death itself, wouldn't you say, Chip?
I love that, Craig. The way we tend to see things in the world is we are a body and we have a soul. And I think it's quite the opposite. I think we are a soul and we have a body. And when you can sort of see that, okay, we, um, the soul lives on. And I've spent a ton of time in India, and to see just the nature of the karmic path and the idea of people reincarnating, and the premise that the end of your life is you're just your body. You are a soul, you have a body, your body goes away, the soul still exists. And part of our job in life is to evolve our consciousness and learn our lessons so that our soul is even more wise for the next incarnation. So yeah, Craig, I totally agree with you.
Well, I mean, we take with us, don't we? We take with us two things, I think. We take with us all the love we've created in this world, because I feel that's the one thing that can't be destroyed. I think we take our consciousness of some form and our personality of some form. We also take our karma, of course, and the good and bad we've done in this life, so that we can continue our eternal progress of our soul into the infinite.
Where do
Anyway,
you,
thank you
Craig?
for
Where are
pulling
you
me in there.
based?
I'm based in the UK. Yeah.
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 And I'm in full agreement with you, Craig.
Yeah, Bobby. I mean, when
But
you've
at the
just
same
lost
time,
someone,
yeah,
doesn't it bring it close to you?
it
Um,
brings it so close to what
what
truly
the
matters.
most
And
important things in life are. Everything else goes out the window when death hits us.
exactly, that's all I was saying.
Nothing else
And
important.
I'm relating to my mum in a different way, but she's still very present for me. So I'm with you on that as well.
And particularly in the last moments when you've just lost her like that. I mean, her closeness will be closer than you than ever before.
Yeah,
You'll
closer than
feel
my
her
own
on an
breath.
internal level. I know
Yeah,
some of you
she's
probably think I'm a complete nutcase talking like this.
no, I'm she's
But
closer than my own breath at all times. There's no doubt.
yeah, yeah.
But I think living fully in this body is what I was meaning. So
Yeah, you were
yeah,
saying about living in the now, weren't you? The importance of the I mean, the now is like eternal, really. I mean, it's not just when you think what is the now, it's not a moment in time. We can only understand the nature of reality in this present
I
moment. We
agree.
can't think of it in the future or the past, but it always has to be this moment. And
That's what
again,
Eckhart
death
Tolle
brings
said.
us to it.
The power of now, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I,
kind of.
I actually came to realize in my life that there's really no such thing as the future, and that everything is a co-creation of the present moment, and that you have to make the most of this the moment that you're in. So that's why I threw out my goals out the window, because I'm just focused on you guys and being present with you. While we have 4 minutes left, I just want to see, is there anybody else that wants to talk about anything? I've been very excited and interested in this conversation, but does anyone have any other questions before, because Chip has to go, he has another call.
Adrian, I'd love to jump in if I may.
Yes, please.
Well, thank you for hosting today, Adrian, as always. Fascinating. Chip, what an honor and a privilege it is, and a pleasure as well, to hear your story. Interestingly, my sister lived in Marin for over 20 years, and I used to stay in the Mill Valley Inn.
Oh
Um,
yes, one of my hotels. Yep, yep.
Yeah, so it was a real pleasure staying there as well. It was great. It was
Yeah.
great, and going to Pete's Coffee on Throckmorton just across the road. So I'm very familiar. I'm very familiar with your product as well. So and you've done some remarkable things. And I think that perhaps what I'd like to know is that obviously through your near life experience, would you say that was the singular driver with regards to awakening your soul and sending you on a spiritual journey?
First of all, thanks for the question, Abe, and for being a former patron of mine.
Don't
So
worry, I got plenty of Amex points as well, so it's fine.
yeah, um, I was on a spiritual journey. I've been on a spiritual journey my whole life. What I think this did is it helped at age 47. It helped me to see that um, how far away I was from the spiritual journey I was in my 20s. And it's very easy to get caught up in on that treadmill of success and accomplishment and ego. And so what it did is it sort of like it just right-sized everything. It said, yeah, Chip, you could be dead, any minute. And so what's truly important? And again, maybe that goes back to what we were talking about. Death helps you to understand what's truly important. And because it forces a sense of urgency around editing what is not important versus what is. And that's really what came to me. And that led me to selling that company, having thought I'd be running it till I was 80 years old. So it helped me with that. And yeah, and so it ultimately, and then I gave myself the space, that 2 years of midlife atrium, to be on a much deeper spiritual journey, going to the Kumbh Mela with 100 million people, the biggest festival of any kind in the world, at the Ganges River every 12 years, and doing things like that that just gave me a deep sense of how do I devote myself to a spiritual practice that is integrated more in my work life, which I was able to do at Airbnb, and then in a much bigger way now at MEA, which I feel a bit like I am now on my monk path of, you know, truly being in service.
Well, it's been really fascinating. I wish we had more time, and I'd just like to say I wish you all the best in all your endeavors, and for you, with the utmost of sincerity, I wish you, with your current illness, the best possible outcome.
Come visit in Baja or Santa Fe.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
This has been absolutely wonderful. I think this has been one of my favorite webinars I've ever done. So thank
Thank
you.
you.
I mean that. So thank you, Chip, and thank you guys for joining today. Happy to connect any of you that joined. Okay, take care. Love you guys.